Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really dramatic story from Genesis chapter 26. It's all about what happens when you become so successful that your friends, well, they become your enemies. It's an incredible story of fortune, fear, and a really surprising road to peace.
So let's just get right into that question. What do you do when your own success makes you an enemy? It's a weird tension, right? But for the man in our story, it was literally a matter of life and death. We're going to follow his journey from a major crisis into this really bitter conflict, and finally, to an outcome you probably won't see coming.
All right, so our story kicks off with a crisis that probably felt like a bad case of déjà vu for our main character, Isaac. A massive famine strikes the land. And yeah, this is the exact same problem his famous father, Abraham, had to deal with. So to keep his family from starving, Isaac packs everything up and heads toward Gerar, which is Philistine territory. Now, you'd think the logical next step is Egypt, right? It was the ancient world's superpower, the place with all the grain. But then he gets this direct command from God, basically saying, nope, don't go to Egypt, stay right here. And along with that command comes this absolutely monumental promise.
God basically doubles down on the famous covenant, that super serious binding promise that he made with Abraham. He tells Isaac, I'm giving you this land, you're going to have more descendants than you can count, and your family is going to be a blessing to the entire world. Talk about an incredible promise to get when you're in the middle of a famine, right? It's a huge deal. Okay, but this is where it gets really, really interesting. Because even with this incredible divine promise in his back pocket, Isaac almost immediately stumbles. He shows this very human, very relatable flaw. And that flaw is fear. See, he's terrified that the local guys will see how beautiful his wife, Rebecca, is and decide to just kill him to get to her. So what does he do? He pulls a move straight out of his father's old playbook. He tells everyone, she's my sister. Look, it's not exactly honest, but you can see why he did it. It was a survival tactic. Yeah, but a lie like that, it's not going to last forever. And sure enough, King Abimelech is just looking out his window one day and, whoops, he sees Isaac and Rebecca having a moment that is definitely not how a brother and sister act. So he calls Isaac in and confronts him. And he's not just angry about the lie itself, he's furious because of the danger it put his people in. Imagine if one of his men had tried to marry Rebecca. It would have been a disaster for the whole kingdom. And this is where the story takes this wild turn, because despite the famine, and even despite his own lie, Isaac goes ahead and plants crops in this foreign land. And get this, he reaps a 100-fold return in a single year. That's basically an impossible harvest, especially during a famine. The blessing God promised him? Yeah, it was very, very real.
And we're not talking about a small little windfall here. Isaac's wealth just exploded. We're talking massive flocks of sheep, huge herds of cattle, a big staff of servants. He became a legitimate economic powerhouse. But here's the thing. All that success, it didn't win him a bunch of friends. No, it bred something way more dangerous. It bred envy.
So as you can probably guess, that envy starts to boil over, and it leads to open conflict. But this isn't the kind of war you're thinking of, with swords and spears. No, this is a battle fought with shovels over wells. It was a war for the single most precious resource in the desert, water.
And things escalate fast. The Philistines start by actively sabotaging him. They go around filling up all the wells his father had dug with dirt. And then the king himself, Abimelech, comes to Isaac and basically says, you have to leave. Go. You've become way too powerful for us.
Now, after being kicked out, Isaac could have fought back, but he doesn't. He just moves. He goes to a nearby valley and starts digging for water all over again, and his servants find a fantastic well, fresh, springing water. But immediately, the local herdsmen show up and claim it's theirs. So Isaac names that well Esek, which means contention. Okay, fine. He moves on, digs another well. Same thing happens. They fight over that one too. So he names it Sitnah, which means enmity or hatred. It's getting pretty hostile, right? So he moves one more time, digs a third well, and this time, silence. No one fights him for it. And he calls this one Rehoboth, saying, finally, the Lord has made room for us.
So after finding a little breathing room at Rehoboth, Isaac packs up and moves one last time to a place called Beer-sheba. And it's here, you guys, that the story takes its most surprising turn yet. This is the real pivot point. He's just getting settled in, and guess who shows up? King Abimelech, the guy who kicked him out. And he's not alone. He brought his top military commander with him. This was definitely not a friendly, hey, how's it going visit. This was a serious delegation.
And Isaac is, as you can imagine, pretty suspicious. He basically cuts right to the chase and asks them, "Wait a minute, why are you here? You guys hate me. You sent me away. What could you possibly want from me now?"
And Abimelech's answer, this is the absolute climax of the whole story. He basically says, look, we see it now. We saw how you prospered when everyone else was starving. We saw how every single time you dug a well, you found water, even while we were fighting you for it. And we finally realized we weren't just fighting with you. We were on the wrong side of whatever your God is doing. We can see clearly now that you are blessed by the Lord.
I mean, that admission just changes everything. Think about the journey here, from envy to kicking him out, and now they've come all this way just to ask for a peace treaty with him. And Isaac, he agrees. He makes a big feast for them, and the next morning they all swear an oath not to harm each other. Just like that, the relationship flips from pure hostility to a formal peace.
And the perfect ending to this whole story, this whole journey from conflict to covenant, it gets locked in forever by one last really meaningful name.
And you can't make this timing up. On the very same day, the exact day that Isaac makes this peace treaty with his old enemies, his servants come running up to him. And what's the news? We found water. They've dug yet another well, and it's a success.
So Isaac names his new well Sheba, which is the Hebrew word for oath. And the city that eventually grows up around that very spot becomes known as Beer-sheba. It literally means the well of the oath. The name forever marks this incredible moment of peace.
When you look at it, Isaac's story is it's a fascinating case study in conflict. He never once picks up a sword. When people are jealous of him, when they're actively hostile, his response is just to move on and build something new. His victory doesn't come from crushing his enemies. It comes from being so relentlessly blessed that his enemies eventually come to him asking for peace. And that just leaves us with a really powerful question to think about, right? When you're faced with opposition, is it more powerful to stand and fight or to move on and build?